Well, welcome to Caring for New Hampshire, this Ministry of Concerned Women for America. I'm Elaine Driscoll, State Director, and you're here with us today, and we are going to be talking about a lot of things that are happening here in our state. As you know, this time of year is when our legislature is busy creating new bills, and tonight we're going to be talking about quite a few bills that have to center around women's reproductive health, as they like to coin it, abortion services, and also what's reflecting in the U.S. legislature, what they're doing, and what Obamacare or the Affordable Health Care Act is also doing in those areas of abortion services and family planning. And so I'd like for you to help me welcome President of New Hampshire Right to Life, Kurt Wuelper. Kurt,
thank you.
I'm so glad that you're here with us tonight, and I know you and I ran into each other at the state legislature at a couple of committee hearings over the last week or so, but you're showing me all the different committees that you've been attending, and it's been quite a few.
Well, it hasn't been a lot of committees. Basically, I've been at Judiciary Committee for a lot longer time than you'd ever want to be, unless you're on it, right?
You get to know everybody, don't you?
but yeah, you know, we elected a new legislature here.
Yes, we did.
The last election, and one of the things that was major, because those of us that are social conservatives that are pro-life and pro-traditional marriage, we're looking for big things out of this legislature, and they basically told us, okay, you guys got to wait until next year.
Right.
Well, this is next year.
That's right.
So the plate is full, and a lot of bills that we've had in the legislature before are getting much warmer receptions than they are right now. But as I tell our folks, our work is just as hard now, if not harder than it was before, because the legislature can pass these bills, but the governor has a pen in his hand.
Yes.
And I heard him the other day, and it doesn't sound like he's any more amenable to these ideas than he ever has been.
Well, he's been pretty straight line on those issues
So
all
our work
along.
is still cut out for us.
No surprise
because now,
there.
Instead of, according to my counting, we have somewhere in the area of about 230 members of the House of Representatives who would be pro-life. But we need about 267 if he uses his veto pen, which he's not unlikely to do.
Okay.
So we still need to be working with our legislators of whatever stripe. The good news for us, I think, is that almost all this legislation, as you introduced, has to do with women's health.
Right.
Right? There's not much that has to do with abortions per se.
Yes, and let's talk about that bill. It's HB 1569.
1659.
1569. I always
1659. 1659.
1659.
I have
and
it
that's
written down right there. 1659. Women's Right to Know. Women's
Right to Know Act. And do you want to share a little bit about what that bill entails?
Yeah, basically there's two parts to it, I guess, if you want to look at it this way. One is the bill says that women have a right to know about all the physical and psychological risks that have been so well documented as consequential to abortion.
Right.
That they have the right to know that, and providers have to tell them that. And the other part says, and they have to wait 24 hours from the time that they receive that information until before they can actually commit the act. Both of those are important parts. And there's other stuff that's in the bill that's we don't want to get into. It's long, and then there's a lot of it. Right,
right. And I know while we were there, there was a young woman that did testify that she was actually had an abortion here in Concord, and it was very powerful what she shared. And the fact that she was not given full disclosure about what would happen to her after the abortion. And it was very traumatic for her. And she was there saying, basically, I was not given full information. I
Right.
did not know what was going to be happening. I did not meet with my doctor before the procedure. No one really counseled me at all. And I was pretty much just signed up and, you know, go to the room and here it is and you're done. And it really has had life-changing impact for her, that whole...
Life-changing is impact is absolutely right. I mean, Kelly, just to give a shout out to Kelly Roy for
Yeah. Hi, Kelly. Thank you so much for everything you've done.
and Operation Outcry for having
Right.
the courage to come and testify
She
like
heads
this.
up Operation
And to
Outcry.
Representative Sue DeLamus, who
Yes.
testified in a similar manner. This is an outrage.
Right,
And
really.
any other medical procedure, right? The doctors, the healthcare providers go to great lengths to let you know of things that only happen in 1 in 10,000 cases.
Right.
Not things that
This is
happen
very rare, but we need
yeah,
to let you know
in
that
20,
this could possibly
30,
happen.
60% of cases, like for psychological effects with depression and things like that, up to 60% of women who have abortions get depressed afterwards.
Right.
Which isn't surprising. Look what happens to women that have miscarriages,
Yes.
and they're not responsible for the miscarriages.
Right.
It's not their fault. They know it's their responsibility when they're having an abortion, and so it just makes it worse. So, yeah, it's very powerful to hear those stories. Unfortunately, there are just millions of them in our country. And in fact, I don't think he's the actual committee chair, but the one who was sitting in the committee chair's seat at that time, talked about his wife had an abortion before they got married. And it wasn't until 20 years later that it started bothering her and the problems that it caused in their marriage with their family. And that's another one of those things that's out there that women don't even get told. They don't get told that they're going to be much more likely to have premature birth,
Right.
right? Much more prone to have
Breast cancer.
breast cancer. Well, I was going down the premature birth line
yeah,
to where
yeah.
they have a lot more cerebral palsy and other types of birth defects because of premature birth. It's very high. But the women aren't told about any of those things. So that's House Bill 1659, and again, that's all about women's health. It doesn't say, it doesn't have a single thing to do, it wouldn't stop any abortion,
That's correct.
right?
It would
Every
not.
abortion that would still be allowed.
Right. It doesn't
Right.
prevent.
It
All
doesn't
it does
prevent.
is serve as saying that full disclosure should be made to the potential patient. Yeah, they need to know all the risks.
And this is particularly important in the abortion industry because it is an industry. And if you read things like Abby Johnson's book on
Yes.
former Planned Parenthood director, and she talks about how they actually sell abortion,
Yes.
right? This is their target. When women walk through the doors, they're thinking 4 abortions, right? They don't counsel in the way that, say, a pregnancy center, and that's another bill, HCR 31, went to Health and Human Services. And that's to honor the pregnancy centers in our state and our country for the work that they do. And you and I know that they're doing enormous work.
They're doing enormous work.
They're completely private, all volunteer, mostly volunteer staff, and yet they save thousands of lives, and they help heal just tens of thousands and hundreds of thousands of women through things like post-abortion counseling, which you really don't get at a Planned Parenthood clinic.
Well,
Right.
you know, it was really shocking when Kelly, you know, I've heard her testimony before. She's been on our show before and given her testimony, but it's still so shocking to hear her give that account again and say, you know, I called the clinic and told them, you know, that this happened, and they just told
Blew me
her,
off.
so what?
Yeah.
And hung up on her.
Oh, well.
It's just like, huh? I mean,
This is a real, and this is endemic in abortion clinics, as far as I can tell, because you hear these cases over and over and
Yes,
over
you
from
do.
across the country, I mean, on a regular basis, right? And it's worse even with these now RU-486 abortions, where the patients come in, they get counseled, they get the pills, and then they go home to have the abortion alone.
Right. And anybody that doesn't know what RU-486 is, you want to share a little bit?
RU-486 is a chemical abortifacient. I won't bore you with the details of the drugs that are involved, but it involves 2 drugs. You take the pills, and I guess they're effective. Supposedly they're effective up to 8 or 9 weeks of pregnancy. You take the pills, and a couple days later, sometime within the next 3 days, you have a miscarriage because the baby's it makes the womb inhospitable to the baby.
Wow.
But can you imagine what that's like? You go to a clinic, you get the pills, and you go home to a hotel room or to your house all by yourself.
Or if you're a young person and you go home and you don't tell mom and dad why you don't feel so good.
Yeah, I just don't feel good. I think I'll go lay down for a couple days. But the complications are there. Infections are there. Deaths have been there. There have been like a dozen deaths reported just in the United States from this drug. And women are not counseled about those things. Oh, by the way, you could die. No, they don't tell them that.
Right, right.
So they really need to know.
I agree. And I'm sure many of our viewers also feel that way as well. I mean, even if you believe that it's a woman's rights to choose, I would hope to believe that you would also think that they should have a fully informed message so that they can make a good decision.
Well, they should have the information to be able to weigh the pros and the cons.
Right.
Because there are definitely risks associated. And some of them, like the abortion breast cancer link, can be disputed. Or maybe it can be disputed. Certainly it isn't recognized by the Center for Disease Control, but it is recognized by pretty much everybody else. Well, I mean, we had Dr. Lynn Franke from the Breast Cancer Prevention Institute up.
Yes.
And she's got a beautiful little brochure that, praise God, I think almost all the committee members from Judiciary came and heard her speak. And
That's great.
took her information. And explains exactly how, biologically how, the abortion increases the risk of breast cancer. I mean, it's only one factor. Right? There's a lot of other risks for breast cancer as well.
Right.
But she talked about a lot of those. And I'm hopeful that that really made an impact on some of the committee members who, particularly those who would be more on the pro-abort side.
Right.
Right? To recognize that this is a real risk for women, even if the Center for Disease Control doesn't yet recognize it. So, but I know I talked to one of the legislators, and he's very concerned about that having that language in the bill, because they haven't got, what's the phrase, scientific consensus, could be a real problem. So we'll have to see where that goes when it's in committee, whether they may try and take that part of it out and say you don't have to let women know about breast cancer, which would be a tragedy, but the bigger victory would be get the bill. So.
Now, you were sharing with me that many of these bills have had their first hearing, right? And now they're going into executive committee hearings coming up this next week. So is it important for people to go ahead and give a call or write a letter?
Right now,
don't do emails, but write a letter.
Particularly to the committee members. Okay. And basically we're talking about the Judiciary Committee for almost every one of these bills. The Judiciary Committee is the one that's going to decide how they recommend this out to the House. Correct. They're going to work on these bills in the committee itself. And like we were talking about the abortion breast cancer thing. Well, maybe in the committee they'll say, you know, we don't want to have that in the bill. Right. So they just cross it out, because that's what they do. Yeah. And then they'll have a bill without that information. Be the same bill, maybe, but just without that information. And they'll recommend that to the House as maybe, hopefully, ought to pass as amended.
Right.
And then it goes to the full floor of the House to be voted. So right now, with the committee members, you can really have some real influence, because any single member of the committee has a lot more influence than 10 or 15 people on the floor of the House. I mean, there's never a problem with letting your legislator know that when it comes to the floor, you want them to support it. But it's really in the committees where the hard work gets done. And that's going to happen right now in the next week. No more than 2 weeks. Right,
right. And generally, it's pretty difficult to change things on the floor. It does happen, but it's a lot more work.
Yeah, praise God, Warren Gruen got the, help me out here, not the parental consent, House Bill 228. Okay, never mind, skip that.
He's done quite a few bills, so I'm trying to search
No,
through.
you get it changed on the floor.
1402? No.
You get it changed on the floor to make it a much better bill to go to the Senate, but I can't remember. Doesn't matter now.
Yeah, he was here on that bill, and I'm sorry. I can't. I'm having a brain
We are victims
dump
of the
too.
president, right?
It happens to us, doesn't it?
So it can happen, but it is rare.
Yeah.
And it has to be rare. I mean, I don't know how many hundreds of bills go through that legislature in a session. I know Judiciary itself has something like 71 bills that they're looking at. They had to have all the hearings done within the next, and they barely have time to even think about these things.
And looking at the fact that the House as a whole usually passes somewhere around 1,000 bills a year. It's a lot of bills.
A lot of bills.
And those are the ones that make it through the whole process.
But if you're on any of the busier committees, you haven't got time to be looking at any of these other bills that are in other committees.
That's right.
Right. You just don't. And
so you go by whatever the committee recommends.
You have to rely on the committee. Yeah.
So there you have it. If you really feel that you would like to have input on these bills, which is HB
1659,
a Women's Right to Know Act, you should contact members of the Judiciary Committee and just give them a call. They really do appreciate that. And if that's not convenient for you, then drop a card or a letter. I don't recommend email because I've heard over and over again from legislators that they just don't have time to read their email. So a letter or a phone call is the best way to go.
But you should know that if you go to the New Hampshire House website, you can email an entire committee all at once.
Yes, that is true.
Right? So you can just click on the link to the committee, and there'll be a thing there that says contact the committee. If you click on that, it'll go to all the committee members.
Very good, very good. And it's the bill was HB 28.
HB 1659.
No, the one that we forgot before, and that was the one.
Oh, that's gone through the House already. That's in the Senate now. So.
Yes, I know. And that bill actually would cause abortion facilities to be separated from.
Right, that was the Planned Parenthood funding bill.
Health services, right.
Right, and that's another thing. I mean, we've argued this for years and years that the money that you give to Planned Parenthood is fungible. So any money you give them, directly or indirectly, supports their abortion business. And that bill, HB 228, is to say they have to have completely separate organizations in order to get any funding at all.
Right.
That would be powerful.
Well, let's. There was a great thing that happened this week with Susan G. Komen.
Susan G. Komen, yes.
Yes, and that was really good news for us who are really looking to not support abortion services or abortion providers any further with our tax money than or our money through some other means. And they've decided to withdraw their support. Financial support to Planned Parenthood. Yeah,
there's the good news and the bad news as far as that's concerned. So for those that don't know, Susan B. Komen, Race to the Cure, Susan B. Komen Foundation is maybe the largest largest breast cancer research funder and care funder in our country. For many years, they've been on the outs with us on the pro-life movement because they have been funding Planned Parenthood. And Planned Parenthood does abortions, and abortion causes breast cancer. So this year, just this week, Susan B. Komen said they would no longer be granting money, which I think they did something like $700,000 last year.
Wow.
But they will no longer be granting money to Planned Parenthood. So praise God for that.
Yeah, praise God, because you know what? I've deliberately refused to buy anything that had
Susan B. Komen on it, right?
Susan B. Komen on it.
But I wouldn't be as excited as a lot of people are.
Okay.
And the reason is because the only reason that they said they would not fund Planned Parenthood anymore is because of the federal investigation that Cliff Stearns has got going. Right? And for those that don't know about that, Americans United for Life last year came out with like a legal brief on all the abuses that Planned Parenthood has been pretty much caught doing across the country, across the last several years. And Cliff Stearns and the House of Representatives has started an investigation of Planned Parenthood and asking them to prove that they've been using the money properly. So this will take quite a little while.
And you know what? That was also, the Judiciary Committee last year also asked the Planned Parenthood here in New Hampshire to reveal their books to show how they were using the money. And they didn't even blink an eye. They just looked at them and said no.
Yeah, no.
I mean, no explanation, nothing, no. And I think that, set a lot of people really aback, because the fact that they're using public monies for what they're doing and then refusing to give any public servant access
we have
that.
laws.
So,
we have laws that say the state money can't be used to support abortion. Right? So all we're asking them is open your books up so we can see that you're complying with the law.
Right.
And they're saying, no, we're above the law, or we're outside the law, or some such thing as that. I'm not
I
sure
don't
what
even know they say that. They just say no.
They just say no. So anyway, but that's the only reason.
Yep.
Because of that investigation is the only reason Susan Coleman stopped giving money. So that means if Cliff Stearns were to curtail his investigation and we just wrap it up, they go right back to giving Planned Parenthood money again. And they go right back to supporting the thing that's one of the primary causes of breast cancer.
Well, it
so
sounds
that,
like
to me, is
we as
troublesome.
the public need to really encourage them and tell them that we thank them for, at least temporarily suspending their funding of it, and we'd like to encourage them to continue that.
Your mind says, I want to thank you for doing that. I just wish you had done it for the right reasons. And I, really?
Yeah.
You can get a hold of them pretty easily. And that's what I did. I just said, I thank you for doing it.
For us, huh?
but I wish that you would do it for the right reason, and that's because abortion is a substantial cause of breast cancer, and it's contrary to your mission to be funding such a thing.
Yeah, it does seem a bit ironic.
It is. But it's good that they're doing it.
Yeah.
And hopefully, I don't know, we could see Planned Parenthood have to actually use up some of their $1 billion in assets.
Yeah. Well, it's stunning when you look at the report that they released, and who knows if it's truly reflecting everything that they've gathered in profit over the last few years, or over last year.
Excess revenue.
Almost $500 million.
Yeah, well, they make somewhere between 15 and 50 million excess revenue. They don't make profit. They're a non-profit. They just make excess revenue. Got to remember that, excess revenue.
It's just mind-boggling, and that, at least a third of that comes right out of the taxpayer
wallet.
pocket.
Yeah. I don't understand how they even get away with it. My wife's a nurse, and she worked at Wyeth Douglas for a number of years. And at one time, they were laying off staff, and the census in the hospital was down, and they were adding on to the hospital. And I said to her, how can that be? And she says, well, they make too much money.
Yeah.
Right? So they have all this money, and because of their nonprofit status, they can't keep it.
Right. So they
But
have
somehow
to use
Planned Parenthood keeps it. And year after year after year, they're putting tens of millions of dollars, salting it away somewhere. Right? And they get away with it. I don't know how.
Wow. Well, we are getting close to the end of our time, but I know there's so much more that we can share
let's
on
talk
this.
quickly about
would you
the-
be able to
let's
stay? Would you be able to stay and do another
Sure.
segment? Yeah. Well, why don't we do that? We'll have you. We'll
Just
have you
before
on
we do
again.
that, let's just quickly mention, we'll give you a lead into the next one,
Yes.
right? And then we'll talk about the conscience rights and Obamacare and bills in the New Hampshire House.
That's right.
That deal with our rights of conscience, because
That's really important, because a lot of people are going to be shocked when they find out that they don't have any rights.
they don't have any rights. Yeah, our most fundamental rights, guaranteed by the First Amendment of the Constitution to our free exercise of religion, are being trampled.
And association as well.
that as well.
Yes. Well, thank you so much for being here, and I'm really excited about going on to doing the next segment. So thank you so much.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And thank you for joining us. And again, call your members of the Judiciary Committee. They belong to all of us, even though it might not be an official from your town. But please do that, and please let them know what your viewpoint is on this particular bill, a women's right to know. And I thank you so much for joining us, and I hope you'll stay with us for the next segment with Kurt Wuelper, who is the president of New Hampshire Right to Life. God bless you.